Time to make our picks for week 2 in the Canadian Football League. You boys both went 2-2 against the spread last week, so I'm expecting better. Let's be winners, boys, okay? This time around, make the people some money. The Blue Bombers are 6.5-point favorites against the Redblacks, who play for the first time this season following a week 1 bye. Drew Brown, who spent the past 3 seasons in the Peg, makes his first start as Ottawa's QB1, while the Bombers are without all-star receiver Kenny Lawler and the reigning most outstanding Canadian, Brady Oliveira. Hodge, you got burned by Winnipeg last week. Are you taking the Bombers against the spread again?
No, and the reason for that is what you just mentioned. Brady Oliveira will not play due to a knee injury. I think Johnny Augustine is an underrated player, but he is certainly no Brady Oliveira. And when you look at Winnipeg's receiving core, they've got Carrick Wheatfall making his first career start in place of Kenny Lawler. You've got Ontario Wilson making his second career start in Rashid Bailey's old spot. This is a skeleton crew. Now, one of these guys could step up, but it is tough to, after seeing a poor offensive performance last week with some of these weapons in tow, imagining Winnipeg having a strong day on the offensive side of the ball. That being said, I am still going to take them to win. I got big questions about Ottawa's offensive line. I've got questions about how quickly Drew Brown, though I am a fan of his game, he'll be able to hit the ground running with the new team. So I will take Winnipeg to win. However, I will take the Redblacks to cover.
I'm in exactly the same boat as you are, Hodge, which based on last week means you guys at home should pick exactly the opposite of what we're saying here. But I don't trust the Bombers without that many star players in their lineup. I think there's going to be a bounce back team. I do not think that a Mike O'Shea-led team can come out flat 2 weeks in a row. We've seen the Bombers stumble before, and they've always had a bounce back game. I think they will have that here, but they just don't have the same ammunition that they're used to having around Zach Collaros right now. And I think that gives just enough for an improved Ottawa team to cover this very large spread here at home.
To me, the points in this one is a smart play, fellas. You know, kind of like they were in those 2 games that I was giving Hodge the business about in week 1. The Redblacks are at home. Yes, it's a prime bounce back spot for Winnipeg, and I do think they probably win, and Mike O'Shea's record in these kinds of situations would prove it. But there's a lot of energy around that team. I think Darius Pickett has brought a new attitude and physicality to that defense. The offensive line definitely has to play better, but you know, I do think it is a prime spot for the Redblacks to have a decent chance to cover and maybe make Hodge look like a fool yet again for eating a bunch of points.
I'm not eating the points. I'm taking the points.
You are? Oh, I thought you were laying them with Winnipeg.
No, I'm picking Winnipeg straight up. I'm taking Redblacks against the spread, and you got to listen better, buddy.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, what am I doing? Sorry, dude. Need to clean out my earwax.
It's okay, Dustin. Happens all the time.
Yeah, oh gosh. Yeah, call me whatever you want. I'm just a little wiener. It doesn't bother me. The Edmonton Elks are 5.5-point underdogs. We'll try to listen better this time around, I promise. Against the reigning Grey Cup champion Montreal Alouettes, who pasted the Blue Bombers in Winnipeg last week. Cody Fajardo threw 2 touchdown passes in the win, while Noel Thorpe's defense held Winnipeg without a touchdown for 59 minutes. Meanwhile, the Elks coughed up a 13-point fourth quarter in a comedy of errors that led to Saskatchewan winning late in that game, overcoming a 21-8 deficit to score 21 answered and win 29-21 on the road, handing the Elks a loss. JC, do you see Edmonton dropping to 0-2?
I really do, and it's unfortunate for that franchise as a whole, one that myself and my family hold very close to our hearts, being from Edmonton, but I just don't see a way that they win this football team. That team is not galvanized right now. They're improved on offense. I liked some of the progress. I liked what I saw from McLeod Bethel-Thompson in his first start for Edmonton. But this Montreal defense is legit. Nobody has beat up on them since halfway through last season, and the Edmonton Elks are not going to be the first to do that. They're going to struggle more offensively here, and they just don't have the defense to stop even Montreal's more conservative offense. I think this is not going to be particularly close, and I'm taking the Alouettes and all the points.
To me, I think if you look at the win Montreal had last week, that is their formula to a T. They are going to suffocate you on defense. They are going to play close to flawless special teams, and they're going to be opportunistic on offense, right? Cody Fajardo finished that game with about 250 passing yards. 76 of them came on a trick play, right, with the flea flicker to Tyson Philpott. I think that is the formula they're going to use all season, and I do have them winning this game, but I do think that Edmonton, just like the Riders, fought back late in last week's game. I think the Edmonton Elks could get some garbage time points here to keep this one within one score. I don't think it's easy to win back-to-back games on the road, which is exactly what the Alouettes are going to have to do here. So I will take the Alouettes to win. However, at plus 5.5, I will take the Edmonton Elks to cover at home.
That's a smart pick, in my opinion, Hodge. You touched on it. Not just back-to-back games on the road, back-to-back games on the road in the West Division, flying a good chunk of our beautiful country. And I think that the Sharps are going to be on the Elks in this game, and that's usually where you want to side with your money. So I think Edmonton makes a lot of sense for a number of reasons, outside them Elksing from time to time or Elksing a bunch of times in the fourth quarter, that's probably the smart play in this ballgame. The BC Lions are 8.5-point favorites over the Calgary Stampeders for their home opener in Vancouver, which will feature a pregame performance from rap icon 50 Cent. I'm going shine till my heart don't stop. The Lions got off to a disappointing start last week in Toronto, allowing 6 sacks in a loss to the Argonauts, while the Stampeders beat Hamilton despite having to settle for 6 field goals from Rene Paredes. Hodge, does Calgary stand a chance in what will be very hostile territory?
Well, 50 Cent has 21 questions, and they're all about BC's offensive line. This unit struggled terribly, particularly at the left guard spot in their season opening loss to the Toronto Argonauts. I think that this is a ton of points. I do have the Lions winning this one, but with an improved secondary in Cowtown, and the offensive line that I think was doing a really nice job controlling the line of scrimmage, opening holes for BJ Emmons and Dedrick Mills. I think that the Calgary Stampeders will keep this one close. I also liked what we saw from a more fleet-footed Jake Mayer, who helped take the pressure off that club's 2 relatively inexperienced offensive tackles in moving the pocket, shifting around the launch point. I do think that this crowd is going to be a big factor in this one. The Lions are expecting over 50,000 people for a regular season game for the first time since 2011. Could be the largest crowd for a regular season game in decades. So I think that will be a big advantage for the Leos. The Stampeders haven't played in front of that many people since the 2018 Grey Cup, and they're not used to playing in a facility anywhere close to what they're going to have in the Dome at BC Place Stadium. So I will take the Lions to win, but I am unwilling to eat this many points. If you can get Calgary plus more than a touchdown, I think that is the spot on the line here.
Yeah, the BC Lions may have a lot of questions around their offensive line, but they've got more than 50,000 reasons to win this game. And I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but in a year when you're trying to increase your ticket sales yet again and build up momentum for a Vancouver Grey Cup and get people into that building for that showcase, you've got to win when you've got 50,000 people in the building. The pressure is on the Lions, but they've got Vernon Adams Jr., who, despite all those problems with his protection, looked really good in the opener. And I don't think Calgary's line, while it's good, is going to be quite at the level that Toronto's was, where they're too deep at every position with guys who would start on other teams. The line is going to be able to buy V8 just slightly more time, and the Lions are going to be able to get it done here. I just don't think they cover this spread. I'm not confident enough in this team right now to take all those points, much like you, Hodge. So take the Stamps to cover, but take the Lions to win.
This week feels to me like that famous meme that goes around on the internet where the guy's walking down the street with his girlfriend holding his hand, and he's looking at the girl that just went by. Last week, he was holding the hand of his girlfriend, eating up all those points, nom, nom, nom. But this week, he's looking at that girl walking by saying, yeah, I don't need these points. I just want the spoils that go to the victor, and I'll wait for my dessert. So I like this change from Hodge because I feel like in this spot, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of pressure on BC at home. I do think the Lions are in a great spot here to get a win. But having that many people in the building with 50 and everything, everybody's expecting BC to win. Nobody's expecting anything from Calgary. That oftentimes is a recipe for potential disaster or at least a loss in this case. And you look at the points here, and I think the public is playing up everything that's going on with BC and having 50 Cent there, but the Sharps are going to be on Calgary's side. So I think it's smart to take the points with the Stamps in this game. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are short favorites at home against the Saskatchewan Roughriders on Sunday, where the Ticats will look to get their first win of the season. Bo Levi Mitchell showed surprising mobility in last week's loss to Calgary. Those receivers did drop a number of passes. The Roughriders, meanwhile, completed a late comeback against Edmonton to start 1-0 as Sean Payne Jr. tied a single-game franchise record with, count 'em, 3 touchdown receptions. JC, who you got?
Well, I think this game, like so many others with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, is going to come down to QB play. And there will be a tendency to look at what the Ticats did in week 1 and look at how Bo Levi Mitchell seemed to find some rejuvenated energy, some mobility, and say, okay, I'm comfortable betting on that guy at home right now. But I think there's going to be a regression to the mean. That Bo Levi Mitchell that we saw in his return to Calgary was emotionally fired up for a big game that meant a lot to him. I think we see some regression to the mean here, more of the Bo that we've seen in the last couple years. And I just don't trust the Ticats' weapons as a whole, especially with how many drops that they had in week 1, which ultimately cost them those games. I've talked about how impressed I was with the Riders battling back in that first game. I think coming on the road here in Hamilton, they're going to be able to do something similar and sneak out a victory with that offense that I think looks much improved. I'm taking the Saskatchewan Roughriders here.
I am going to be taking the hometown Hamilton Tiger Cats plus 1.5. Very short home favorites here. But I liked what I saw from Bo Levi Mitchell. Had he not suffered those drops from his receivers, he would have had close to 400 yards, which I can't remember the last time Bo Levi Mitchell had 400 yards in a game. Probably that's going back to the 2017-2018 heyday of Bo Levi Mitchell in Cowtown. Again, I think the Riders are a better team than they were last year, but I think that late resurgence we saw from them against Edmonton hid a lot of warts and a lot of bruises from that performance. I did not like the lack of discipline that Logan Ferland demonstrated. I didn't like how many offensive drives stalled from that team. I think Hamilton's defensive line is at least as good as the Edmonton Elks is. All those pieces that they added from the rival Toronto Argonauts, guys like Brandon Barlow, Dwayne Hendricks, Casey Sales, I think is finally starting to get his flowers as somebody who's been underrated in this league for a while. So I'm happy to take the Tabbies, though I will say this is the first half of a home and home between these two teams. I think these guys are going to split the home and home regardless. So I'm happy to take the Tabbies this week and the Riders in week 3 when they play at Mosaic. I just really hope that I don't take Hamilton this week, Sask in week 3, and they do the old reverse around where Saskatchewan wins this week and the Ticats win week 3. I will be very distraught and annoyed if that happens. But for now, I'm rolling with the Ticats at home. Next week, I will roll with the Riders at home.
I like that you guys are on both sides of this game because it could be that close. That said, as Joe Gasson wrote in his column, JC mentioned it earlier, the process in Riderville seems like it's much better. The physicality of that team, I think, is at a better level. The energy is there as well. I think those penalties last week were selfish penalties that can be addressed. Trevor Reed taking an unnecessary roughness penalty, obviously Logan Furland, and there was one from Jaden Dahlke that was taunting away from the play. Those kind of things I think can be cleaned up. And yes, Trevor Harris threw a couple interceptions in that game, but Keen Schaefer-Baker slipped on one, and the other, Sean Bain Jr., was streaking for another big play, potentially another touchdown, and Harris simply underthrew that ball. He'll definitely own that mistake, but I think the Riders are just a better team that I would feel more confident with in this spot. That said, for them, they're going on the road for a second straight week. And even though it's not a West Division team, I think that's going to be difficult to come out east and play the Ticats in their home opener.